Tonight on First Tuesday.
You see a man running away with a rifle, then you give him the challenge, and he isn't going to stop. So you just shoot him, and hopefully you'll kill him, you know.
Northern Ireland's untold story. After 20 years of the Troubles, British soldiers speak out. Good evening. It's 20 years ago this month since the British Army first had to go on the streets of Northern Ireland to support the police. In marking that anniversary tonight, we're not trying to lay blame or to come up with solutions, simply to hear a voice which has spoken out perhaps less than any other over 20 troubled years in Northern Ireland, that of the ordinary British soldier. It's not just one voice, of course. Their experiences vary as much as do the men themselves. And regiments who visit Northern Ireland on 4.5-month tours of duty will see things somewhat differently from the Ulster Defence Regiment, who live and work there all the time. But what they all share, as do the police, and what they describe frankly to us tonight, is a job where killing or being killed is a possible part of every day's work for Queen and country.
Where you going, eh? What's done? The man is dead and the evil spell's been lifted. Years ago, I promised myself a long vacation. It's time to collect. Why don't you go on over to China, visit the motherland? Well, China's in the heart, Jack. Wherever I go, she's with me.
There are 10,000 British troops on active service in Northern Ireland. They've been here since 1969.
You've read the stories, you've seen the books, you know, you're now in the reality of what's actually been happening for the last 20 years.
Soldiers come to Belfast on a 4.5-month tour of duty.
You get told a lot of bull, basically, when you join. Just, I suppose it's their job, really. You get led to believe that it's a good life, so you think, yeah, that's a life for me.
When you do your training to come out, you say to the guys, look, I don't care if we go out there and we catch 30 terrorists and we get them locked away for 500 years. I don't care. All you want to do is come out here with 28 guys and go back with 28 guys. And if you achieve that at the end of any tour, you've done your job.
You went all the way back to base. Sacked it totally. As for Paul, I didn't know what the fuck he was doing.
Up to 6 times in every 24 hours, soldiers are briefed for patrols on the streets of Belfast.
Friendly forces, 1 search team, yourself, call sign Echo 41. 1 dog, there he is, Matt, got the good one this time. Echo 0 Alpha and Echo 0 Foxtrot will be on the ground. The cordon, which will consist of Echo 70 Bravo, Sergeant Barmer. Okay, and he is moving out into position now. The pig will then return to the mill, escorted by my crew, and it will come down Corporn Street, right onto Cashmere Road, right onto Springfield Road, and back up Following the route, went out to the mill.
It's very quiet before you go out on patrol. I always noticed that. Four troops out home in patrol, a few of them were quiet. I think they was preparing themselves. You get these butterflies in your stomach. You don't know if anything's going to happen, but you're always wondering if that 1% chance if something is going to happen. And, you know, it's very nervy. I don't think there's one soldier who can say one frightened. Not one.
Yeah, I'm off, Richie. See you later. Yeah.
There's only one person I know who did crack up in our regiment and he had to be sent home. But that's what it does do to you. 9 times out of 10, the troops can take it. You know, you've got to, that is your job, and that's what you're paid to do. But it depends how strong you are inside. You know, you've got to be strong. If you're not strong, you won't do it. You'll just crack up.
North Howard Street Mill off the Falls Road in West Belfast has been an army base since the start of the Troubles in 1969.
Echoes there, Roger. Spell last name of her.
The mill is home to between 400 and 500 soldiers. The only time they leave is when they go out on patrol.
You're very vulnerable when you leave any sort of police station or army camp. So the guys will always leave it running. And if you like, they bomb burst. And it's a bit of a nerve-wracking time, actually. Entry and exit from any place. That's when the guys are at their sort of the tightest.
I think everybody feels nervous when you go out and you run out the gate and think, Christ, here we go again. But you just got to think of the job and forget about the fear, forget about what might be around the corner. Let's just crack on with the job. When it happens, you just have to deal with it when it happens. And that's the only way to look at it, really, I see. You can't keep having that thing in the back of your mind, oh, if I turn this corner, I might get shot. You know, you just got to keep going for it.
When you do your training, you expect to come to a place where you expect to walk out and see civilians walking around with guns and packets and bombs and that. But it's not, it's a booming town. So when you're out on patrol, what you're seeing is probably 90% of what you would see if you was walking down the high street of your hometown. But it's the 10% of the people there, you're looking for known faces, what they're doing, where they've been, where they're going.
When we first come up here, we learn the pictures to see who they are. And then the first time we hit the streets as a new unit, you go up and you say, hello, Bob. And he just, how does he know my name? I've got to keep clear now. They all know me. So that's just one small deterrent. And then every time you see him, approach him. Don't ask them their name, tell them their name, you know. And he still knows me. So he'd be a bit more wary if someone says, look, I want you to take part in this area. It's just, oh, I'm too well known up there, I can't. So that's a small deterrent there.
You know, the nickname, who the wife is, where they live, who they associate with, what kind of car they drive, the kiddies' names. You go into that in depth about them and you just walk past them. All right, yeah, like his nickname, yeah. Then it worries them, you see, because they know you know everything about them.
They'll try and wind you up, you try and wind them up.
How would you do that?
Oh, just various ways.
pulling their armpit hairs when you search them. That gets them going. I don't like that too much. Just keep them hanging about for a little while. You know, send a P-check on them, get them to come back here, ask them if they're part of the trace when you know they already are. Of course, that'll take 5 minutes, so that's 5 minutes you've got to stand there. If he's in a rush to somewhere, catch a bus or something, you've got to back him about as much as you can, hold them up. Obviously, we can't hold them up too much because we've got to carry on patrolling. But we keep them there as long as we can.
There are many times when you do get your own back. We had a group come out the pub who were saying my mother was going with niggers back at home and things like this. Now, I'm not colour prejudiced by any means, but the sheer fact of them trying to rile us up when they've got a belly full of beer, and we've been on the border for the last 3 nights and coming back into town was getting a bit heavy. And I can remember the guy actually saying, well, come on, I'll take you up if you're scared about the, you know, being done or whatever, we'll 1-to-1 up the side. And we actually went up, excuse me, went up the side there and, well, I'm glad to say he was the one that ended up injured, not us. But he just asked for it. I mean, he pushed the troops on the ground just too far over the line, and yeah, he was off work for about a week.
All sorts of names I'll call you, and you've got to try and ignore that. I mean, it's hard, and it's bloody hard to do that, but you've got to try and ignore it, because if you take one lash at them, that's all they need. It's just for you to just have a go at them, and that's a good excuse, and also we can get done for that. Say for assault, you're not allowed to do anything. You ain't supposed to shout back at them, but you do. You do, you just can't take it. No way can a man take so much abuse as what they give you.
Rover groups, CO's in. The OC's groups obviously up at the search.
Last year, Army and police carried out nearly 900 house searches in pursuit of arms, explosives and wanted men. Despite the strict rules which govern the conduct of searches, they remain the most potent cause of hostility towards the security forces.
You normally have people in front and rear of the house to prevent anybody with anything in the house which they shouldn't have escaping and getting away before the purpose of the search is carried out. We've turned up one find in a search of, in 30 searches here during our tour, and I'd say that's a normal sort of striking rate.
There were 2 sorts of house searches we might have to conduct. One was to look for a wanted man, and one was to look for arms and equipment. I'm afraid our methods of entering a house when looking for a wanted man were not very friendly. It was not a case of standing banging at the front door and waiting for somebody to come and answer it, because he was out over the back and away and you'd never catch him. And the streets that were so long that you couldn't put stops and backups around all the back doors and back alleys. And so the technique was to hit that door at about 30 miles an hour with your shoulder and almost explode into the house and hope that you caught the chap before he had time to get out.
Go on, push him. I'll give him a gap.
There's a good boy.
Let's crack on with this debrief. In task, anybody had any findings from there? 1-0 Alpha. 1-1? 1-3? Right. Any more? Right. Cars of interest. Space Cortinas, anything?
Red Sierra stop ship vehicle.
Go ahead.
Driver Henry Parra.
Yeah.
Request for ISC. Denied.
Sightings.
Thomas.
Time.
17:30.
Location.
PSF office.
Any remarks? Was he with us, anybody?
Yeah, it was with Patrick.
They are high-grade terrorists, be there such a thing. They're very clever. They're extremely patient. If something isn't right today, they wait for tomorrow, and if it's not right tomorrow, they wait until next week or next month. They do one or two things that myself, and indeed lots of other soldiers, think are brave on occasions. They don't do those very often, to be honest, but brave terrorists tend to be dead terrorists.
Started to hear on the radio that there'd been an explosion, and there was a couple, they thought it was only two at the time, IRA guys had tried to put a bomb under a culvert, and they'd somehow set it off. And we went down there, and by the time we got down there, they were picking the bits up, because that's basically all there was left of them. And they had bits of bodies in plastic bags, and I remember seeing this guy's head, thinking, oh my God, that's somebody's head there, you know. And that was, because at first you thought, well, okay, they tried to blow us up, and they've blown themselves up. That's tough. That was my first reaction. But then when I got down there and seeing the carnage, you just thought, oh my Christ, they're just human beings. I mean, it didn't matter who they were. I just immediately felt sorry for them. The fact that this was somebody's father, brother, sister, whatever. It was quite shocking to see that sort of a mess, as it were. It's hard to handle.
The guys that we're dealing with are not thick paddies. Some of them from universities who make all these sophisticated bombs, and obviously they've been at the job 20 years, whereas we come in and out 4 months at a time, having to start to learn it all again.
I suppose one has to say that the bad ones are dead, because we've got them. It's the good ones that survive, and some of them are very, very good. They're probably the best terrorists in Western Europe, if that's a recommendation.
Situation is that tourists from the West Belfast area and the markets have been moving car bombs into the city centre. Attaches to RUC men from Musgrave Street. Our mission is to...
In addition to the regular army, there is the Ulster Defence Regiment.
...into the city centre.
The UDR is a 6,500 strong, predominantly Protestant force, recruited and serving only in Northern Ireland. 180 of its members have been killed, 350 wounded, many while off duty.
Oh, sir, would you have your licence on you, please? Would you have your licence on you, please?
Living at home, the UDR are often easy targets. For one woman UDR soldier, it was the gunman in the waiting car as she left for work.
I heard the car door opening and shutting, the footsteps come running, and I said, "Are you Paracle or Mrs. Marshall?" But before he got the marshal out, he had shot me. And he came and stood, put a leg each side of me, and I was laying on the ground. And he said, he didn't say anything, but he kept pointing the gun at me and trying to work it. He was trying to shoot me again, you see. He was trying to shoot me again, but apparently the police said the gun must have jammed with him. But I begged him, I says, please God, don't shoot me again because I've got wounds. And then I could see the car pulling alongside, and he got into the car, and the car went down the road. And I could see France, she just stood there. She just was froze to the spot. She didn't know what to do. And then everybody at the bus stop started to scream. And then the ambulance that went up past the shop, it came back down. I was very lucky that there was, an ambulance got there so quick. But they, in our training, they told us that where a bullet went in was small and where it came out was big. And I assumed if the ambulance men lifted me that I would all fall out, And I was saying, oh God, don't lift me, because everything, because the blood, you could feel the hot blood just gushing, out my back. Dougie, my brother-in-law, he was sitting in the ambulance, and I thought I was going to die. I felt myself going, and I said to him, Dougie, if I don't make it, will you make sure my mummy looks after my kids for me? And he says to the ambulance man, stop this ambulance and let me out. He says, I'm not listening to you talking like that. But then after that, I don't remember a thing. I remember waking up a wee while in the hospital. My daddy was there. You know, I don't know how people do it, because I couldn't do it to anybody. It's awful. It is. It's terrible.
We take better care of them than we would probably a woman, really. I mean, without it, we're defenceless. It's part of you, you know, it's something that goes with the job. You don't think, well, I'm going out there with a weapon, with a loaded weapon. It's there as a deterrent more than anything. But definitely it does give you a lot of confidence.
It's designed to kill. I mean, all weapons are designed to kill, aren't they? This weapon would kill people accurately, if you know what I mean. If you wanted to wound somebody with this, say I wanted to shoot somebody in the leg rather than kill them, you'd have a better chance of doing it with this weapon. You know, wherever you, like the pointer inside, wherever you put that, the tip of the pointer is where you know that that round is going to hit.
I think the tour we all fired on was in 81 in London there.
Everybody got fired up
there.
there.
Were a lot of cowboy shoots going on then where they just you jump out in the middle of the road and wang a few off. You used to wang a few back and it was like a mutual agreement.
Well-aimed
sort of
shots,
thing.
Phil.
Well, well-aimed
Well-aimed
shots, yeah, well-aimed shots. You know, but nowadays you just don't get a chance. Probably one person on this tour will get the actual chance of actually seeing a gunman in his sights and having the chance to kill him. Probably one person in the whole tour.
9 times out of 10, it'll be someone who's just been chucked into the brick to take a place, you know. One of the Remy lads or something like that, who really doesn't know what he's doing, you know.
And he'll probably miss.
And he'll miss. Whereas if it was one of us, we'd have him, you know. Firing in anger's, it's good fun. It's good. Makes the job worthwhile.
Just hell of a lot for morale. Hell of a lot. If you can't get a good conviction, then you get someone slotted, you know. Otherwise, it's frustrating to come back at the end of the tour and feel that you're not achieved anything by a conviction or actually killing one of the terrorists. You know, that way you feel as if, oh, we've achieved something. Although deep down you probably have achieved a lot, you know, that you don't see of the bigger picture.
They get a chance, then you shouldn't have killed him. There's no two ways about it. Obviously, you just can't sort of run around shooting your rifle everywhere, but if you shoot a terrorist, he's dead. You shoot to kill. That's it. I mean, there's too many soldiers to be being killed out here to just run up to him and capture him. If he's got a weapon, you shoot him.
And is that, do you think, an ambition?
Yeah, I think so. Most soldiers hold it. They see their mates getting hurt, getting killed, you know what I mean? They want to kill them.
Not all soldiers share that ambition to fire. In 1983, a Welsh private found his patrol surrounded by a hostile crowd.
They all got out and were rolling their sleeves up, coming down for a good scrapping, you know. I looked at the commanders as if to say, well, come on in. What are you going to do? You know, and before I knew it, scuffles broke out. We were very young soldiers then, and they were holding onto their rifles for dear life, and the guys were trying to pull the rifles off them. And I looked at the commanders, who were, most of them was their first tour, and they were looking at me, you know, what do we do? And it was one experienced soldier who fired the shot in the air. That seemed to quieten them down. They were gone. The question was then, this might be the very first time that I would have to use my weapon. Killing someone. I couldn't do it.
If you was to see a gunman running across the street with a rifle, you're not allowed to open fire on him. You've got to shout the warning, stop army or I'll fire. And any sensible person who's got a weapon in his hand, if he can't turn around and fire the weapon, he will drop it. You're not allowed to fire on him.
As soon as he's dropped it, he's safe.
Well, if he's not attempting to fire the weapon, he's safe. Unless he actually pulls the trigger and fires back at you, by the rules of the yellow card, you're not allowed to open fire.
Say there's just been a contact, you know, there's just been a shooting incident, and you see a man running away with a rifle, then you give him the challenge, and he isn't going to stop. So you just shoot him, and hopefully you'll kill him, you know. Because that's the only justice, that's the way they work, and that's the way we work.
You never stand still. If you have to stay stationary, you're standing up, crouching down. You're keeping yourself as a moving target. You're not allowing anybody to just draw a steady bead on you because it's all too easy to just... Because you're tired and you want to sit down, it can be really fatal. If I was in the doorway, say, and I was talking to somebody, then I would make sure that I was well covered, but also use that other person, if I could. I mean, it sounds quite cold-blooded now, but anything that would get in the way of you and a possible sniper, you know, it was a bit of a help, I suppose.
It's part of the job. If you go to Ireland and you're afraid of being shot, then again you're not doing your job. As I said before, it's a bit like being a road sweeper. Scared of being run over by a bus. It's an acceptable fact that might happen if you're in the army. After all, when you join the army, you train for war, or you join the army prepare for war. If you're then in a situation, well, not a wartime situation, but a situation where bullets are flying about, and you are unduly worried about that, then you're not, in my view, fit person to be in that army. We were going down the Falls Road. It was an ambush situation, and I had a bullet in the leg. Well, it felt to me like a very heavy hammer blow on the leg, but it didn't hurt slightest. In fact, I could walk around quite happily, and the company commander said, "I hear there are 3 casualties. There are 2 of them. Who is the other?" And I turned around to him and said, "Well, matter of fact, it was me."
Our role must be to assist the RUC in the maintenance of law and order and the defeat of terrorism. And if we have to take casualties in order for them to do that job, then that's something you have to accept. You know, we are trying to get this society back to normal. And until the police can manage on their own, then we have to accept that we're there. Unfortunately, we'll have to continue taking casualties till we have a normal situation restored.
Taking casualties meant that on May the 4th this year, Corporal Stephen McGonigal became the 595th soldier to be killed in Northern Ireland. On all sides, there have been 2,756 deaths in 20 years of unending trouble.
It was a normal RUC Army patrol going down the Falls Road. It was 9:23, I think, and next minute, didn't feel a thing. Just like stepping in front of a 125. I just, didn't have the strength to take the headset off my head, you know. Just, it happened so quick, it was unbelievable. Just couldn't feel a thing. Full facial head injuries. Throat injuries, and minor scarring on the arms as well. Both arms was it as well. I think it was about a fortnight before I had any recollection where he was, and my parents were there, and obviously, you know, you're lying there, and those starts coming back to you slowly, thinking, Christ, you know, where the hell am I, like? You know, and 1 minute you were on the Falls Road, and next minute you feel as if, you know, you've been beamed up on another planet, you don't know where you are, like.
A couple of hours after the incident, we heard that he'd lost one eye. That's what we heard from the troops on the ground. And then it wasn't until the next day that when they went to see, that they said, I think he's blind from his injuries. We don't know yet, because his head was all bandaged. And we just hoped that he wasn't blind. But the main thing was he was alive.
The doctor was called for me, and he just said, you're a very lucky man to be alive, which you're lucky not to come out with any sort of brain damage, you know. But unfortunately, you've lost your sight. And, well, I just, stunned, couldn't believe it. Well, I just let it rip, and I just let it, all the tears come rolling out of me then, you know, and that was the best thing that I could ever do, you know.
You're supposed to be making a car. Charlotte?
Charlotte making one, Ben?
Huh?
Charlotte
Yeah,
making
look.
one?
Huh?
Charlotte making a car?
Most thing I miss, being able to see my children. There's Charlotte, she's coming up now 1 next week. Ben, he's 2. Well, I'm pretty sure that he knows, like.
The wheel's falling off.
Oh, you fell off. At the time, I think everybody wanted to get out of the camp we were actually staying in, go down there and sort everybody out. You know, really rip the town to pieces. That was the first reaction. And then a couple of weeks later, they were very mysteriously quiet. They didn't bother us at all.
even the local thugs. They never said a word. They knew, see, that by our way we were ready to explode. And people were coming up to me, old gentlemen, women, and I was thought, oh, here we go. And they were saying, sorry about your friend, you know. And I think from that point I thought, well, you know, there is really nice people here. I mean, for him to come up and actually risk talking to a soldier and actually saying that and really meaning it, you could tell he meant it. That I thought, well, there is hope for this place yet, you know.
As you first go towards the divvies, you used to always have to check and look up onto the roofs, because they used to love to throw televisions, corrugated sheeting, anything like that. They see troops coming, they used to throw stuff off, bricks and that was the kids, that was.
They throw crisp packets of excreta and stuff at us. They're fairly nasty. When I came out here in November, I think the sewage system had some sort of breakdown in the Divis flats, and basically people were crapping in crisp packets, throwing them at the soldiers when they come in. Other things like they throw dirty nappies, sanitary napkins at soldiers, stuff like that. It's very difficult for the lads to take that and to basically turn the other cheek, as we have to do.
You never went in the lifts. You know, you never went in them because that was too risky, that was. You used to have to go up the stairway, and that was dangerous. And then you're up onto the first section of the divvies, and that's when it hits you. First time you ever go in there, that's when it hits you. You've got all these windows looking onto you from all around. It's like a square, and they're all dangerous points there. You know, gunmen, they could have sitting there and wait for you to come. They could plant devices anywhere. And that divvy, so it was one of the dangerous places, nerve-wracking.
Say you are beginning to feel a bit, you know, the hairs on the back of your neck are sticking up about a certain area. Then the way to overcome it, I always find, is by just hard target through that patch. That's where you run, basically. Stop, the other two go through and you go through, or you all just run across a certain area. And that's it, you're through it then. And then that shakes you out of it, sort of thing, you know, and you feel fine. You get back on with the job.
You just have to be aware, bomb aware, as we call it. There are favourite spots. There are channeled points where you've got a brick wall one side and the row houses the other side, which is a channel point, which if you get caught in there, that's it.
It was in such a location in 1971 that Private Richard Jones came under fire.
As I run across the crossroad, I got down into a firing position and I just fell backwards. I suddenly dawned on me that something had hit me or something had gone wrong somewhere and that I couldn't move my legs. I was paralysed from the waist down. I lost a kidney with the initial accident. That was about it from the initial gunshot wounds.
You just don't know what to say to them, although, I mean, he's my husband, you just don't know what to say to them. But I didn't realise how bad it was then. It was roughly about a fortnight before the doctors could tell me that he'd never walk again, you know. First of all, then, he lost one leg, and then 7 years after, he lost the other. He had to have them amputated.
I accepted on the fact that I was still alive. And I think what helped me to accept it was thinking of my two children, especially the baby, who at the time, as I say, I hadn't seen. And the first time I seen him was when the wife brought him down into Rookwood Hospital. The first thing I done was took him off the wife and held him in my arms in the bed with me. And I watched him. Actually, he was lying on the bed then while the wife was there visiting, and he was quite contented and sleeping, so it gave me that extra bit of boost to fight and survive.
The entire waste of a young man's life, a young man's career, my children not knowing him any other way than in a wheelchair. Other soldiers were killed there. What for is still going on. Richard's got so much guts that he never gives up, so you can't give up either. You know, you just got to keep fighting for him because he's fighting for himself.
The border. 300 miles and as many crossing points divide Northern Ireland from the Republic. The Army continuously monitors the border and its countryside by helicopter, foot patrol and watchtower. This is the notorious Bandit Country. So dangerous that many routine army movements have to be by helicopter.
Hotel Juliet, India 90. Thank you.
The guys get very little time off. When they're not patrolling, they're either on guard or they're on vehicle escorts, vehicle patrols. I would say on average, they will probably do an 18-hour day. And if they're lucky, get 6 hours sleep.
Thank you, sir. All right. Yep. Bye.
To the soldier, border country presents new dangers.
You can't literally pinpoint what you've got to look for because it could be a gate on a hedgerow that's wired. It could be a thin part in a hedge that's been wired because they've seen you go through there. It could be a dustbin, it could be an old car, it could be a bicycle. The list is countless. And there's no way you can think of these 100 million things you're going to look for on the border that could be earmarked for you.
Blackthorn hedges. You don't go through the gaps, we just go straight through them, plough through them, ripping the kit and all that. It happens all the time. It's a prominent place for us to cross through, really. And anything could be on the other side, pressure pad or something like that. But using the hedge, you know what I mean, you've got more chance of survival going that way than the gap or the gate or whatever.
It became a case of double think. You think, well, if they haven't put the booby trap in the gap, then maybe they've put it in the side of the hedge. So maybe I'll be better off going through the gap in the hedge anyway, or there again, maybe not.
Ireland being one big boggy mess as it is, there was no fresh water, and we had actually been out for 4 days and we had no water. And we stopped at this farm and there was an outside tap and we was filling our water bottles up. And the farmer come out flying at us and he actually screaming abuse and going absolutely potty. And then he just went all quiet and he said, look, they're not here now. Just fill your water bottles, but don't ever come back here and fill your water bottles again. He said, because they scare me. If we were given an observation post watching a crossing from north to south, when we got to sort of like within a mile of our destination, we would actually harbour up somewhere quietly and set up the OP. In an OP with 4 people, it gets very strained because you've got to think about going to the toilet, you've got to think about eating. You can't eat hot food, no way during the 4 days, because the Hexi, although it's designed, will smoke, that gives you position away. So you've got to eat cold stuff like that. I mean, what we tended to do is make a big pile of sandwiches, which would last us 2 days. The time comes in 3 days, you've had it up to your eyebrows. You know, I mean, that means going to the toilet in a poly bag and having to secure it in a place, and because litter obviously gives you away. You can't leave anything at all in that position, because if the Irish were to spot that particular place, they can booby trap it for next time. You think, what the hell am I doing here? I always found the last 100 metres going into base the worst. You were wet, you were hungry, you were fed up to the eyeballs. You just wanted to get in. And always that last 100 metres or perhaps 300 metres, you think, don't let an incident occur, just let me get into my bed. It did give the willies going in. You have to run like the clappers into camp, zigzagging up the road.
Get up in the morning, you'll have about 10 packages, don't you?
As a platoon sergeant, then you have to make sure that people do get their washes and that they are washing, they ain't coming in, because they will do, they're just coming in, oh, and away they go, you know, sleep.
It's all right, you caught me now, isn't it? What, the shower? Yeah. I'll bear white off.
And then the blokes will soon tell you, okay, he's starting to hum a bit, right, get your kit off in the washing machine and get yourself showered, you know. Otherwise, because of that knackered, they just drop out on the bed, and you have to give them the old nudge in the back to get them going.
I'll do it.
You got the stench and the stink of people's socks. You're lying up there and somebody's taking his boots off from a 6-hour patrol or whatever he's been on, and that comes up. Get them away, you know. It's pretty difficult to get the Zeds in this place anyway.
You come in and you'll have your scoff, you know, you can have your scoff, and it's amazing how that can make you feel so much better. Even though you're tired, you can just eat something and feel better and go for it. I mean, everybody's got to do it. It's part of the job. Tough shit if you don't like it, you know. You shouldn't be a soldier.
Yeah, but you got rid of the So, mate.
You just really got to push the guys, and you've got to rely on them so much. You know, when they're getting tired, I'm getting tired as well. And when I'm giving my orders, my voice is beginning to flag, and I'm beginning to take shortcuts. It's just one of the things you've got to really grip yourself. And if it starts with you, if you provide interest and leadership, then I think it does get down to the boys, and they think, well, yeah, the boss is all right. Why am I so tired? Let's get out. Let's go and do it. I mean, it's a great life out here. For the first time, really, in my life, at the end of each day, I can sort of put my hand on my heart and say, God, really worked hard today. Really had to work to get through that one. And so there's a great deal of relief at the end of the tour when things finally do finish and you go back.
No, great fun. We would describe it as immensely exciting, a wonderful experience. We were living life. This was a real experience. And there's nothing like a bit of growing up you can do very quickly when you're in a situation like that where the bullets might be flying around. I mean, immense responsibility.
When I'm here, I enjoy it. I'd say that the dodgy times at the beginning, when you're getting used to the actual area you're going to work in, and at the end of the tour, when they know you're leaving, and you know you're leaving. So it's a fight for survival.
And 3 weeks before the end of the tour, a soldier, Private Stephen Gill, was caught in the blast of a remote-controlled bomb.
Initially, we thought he was going to die, but at present, he's lost one leg, an eye, and there's been reports that he might lose his other foot, so he's very badly injured.
As I got to him, I was the first man to him. When I found him on the floor, I didn't know where he was at first. All I found was a pair of ripped-up combats on the floor, and got to him through the smoke and gave him first aid on his injuries, which were pretty horrific. And then I was helped later by these guys and whoever was on the ground, that was it, basically.
I tried to get the kit he had on his back off, and he was shouting to me that, be careful, you know, because of the injury on his arm. I didn't look at his legs because...
The state of his legs were...
He was covered in dust.
They were literally more or less blown apart. And when he was trying to get his arm off his back, I thought, just be careful, because his arms might come off or something silly like that. You don't know what to think when it's going on. You're so scared and frightened about what's going on around you.
And all the civvies apparently were coming out and cheering and things like that, which is, you know, it's just, you don't need that. And of course the lads were then becoming aggressive, you know, and...
What do you mean by aggressive?
Well, they were smacking people about, you know. I mean, anyone who's clapping and things like that on there and then is, you know, gets a smack. That's a fair one, you know. And it's all because the lads were so angry to see one of their mates go down.
Plus when the dogs are attacking his body, right?
Yeah, the dog got shot because it attacked him. It went for the guy that was injured. So, I mean, one of the lads shot the dog, put a couple of rounds into the dog, which is a fair one.
The guys here that tell you, the higher rank, they tell you to hold your anger back. But when you know the guy that's been blown up and that could die at any time, you know, during the week, is in your own platoon, and, you know, some of them best mates around. And guys like that on the streets, the civilians out there, start shouting at 1-0, limping about and holding the eye. There's times when you can't hold it back. You know what I mean?
It's like torture, in a way. It sounds silly, but it is. It does a lot to you. That's why they do it.
You think, you know, let's just go home. You want to go home to be with people that, you know, that care about you and things like that. But you've just got to sort of buckle down.
You know him. You know what he wanted to do. You know what he was hoping to do. Indeed, you know what you hoped for him. And that is, to find all that wiped out in a split second, yes, it's a hammer blow. You feel really bad about that. You feel really angry. You feel bitter is the wrong word, because we all know what we're doing and we accept it. And if we didn't like it, we shouldn't be here.
Missing your family and being away from them, that's the worst, the hardest part. Being away from people that you know sort of love you. When you're here for a 4-month or 4.5-month duration, and your families aren't with you, the only link you've got with them is by letter, telephone. And there might be times when you might not get a letter for 2 or 3 weeks because the postage has been slowed down. You might not be able to get to a phone for even longer. So certainly the separation is the worst part about it.
It's surprising what strain it puts on your marriage, because it does put strain on your marriage. Divorces come with it. They sat at home with the kiddie, looking after the kiddie, and then knowing what's going on. Then the next thing, they look at the television, and there it is, soldier killed in Belfast, soldier injured in Belfast, and they automatically think that it's their husband. In the army, your wife has to be an understanding wife anyway. She has to accept that you're going to be away all the time. She has to accept that your tours of Northern Ireland are coming up like. You know, that you have a good chat before you leave, you explain what's going to happen. You know, if you actually, you die, you get injured, you explain the situation, where she'll be, what she'll be left with. And, you know, you should leave with a good tact of mind that, you know, you've got to sound backing up your wife, like, but when you're out, it's a different story.
If I didn't believe in what I was doing, and if I didn't believe or being proud of myself in doing it, then I wouldn't do it. Northern Ireland is that sort of place. I mean, we've got to believe we're doing right, and I do believe that. And I try to install in any of the soldiers that. A lot of them probably wouldn't understand it, because not saying that they're not mindless and they can't think for themselves, but because they're inexperienced, they look on the fact, well, you know, Sarge thinks it's right, it's right.
It's part of our job. That's what the British Army was formed for, was to protect the Queen and country. Northern Ireland is part of the country. So therefore, if there's trouble and strife going on in any part of the country, I should only think that the troops should be in.
It wasn't popular, you know, it wasn't exactly as if you were going out to something that was, that you felt that you were fighting for all this Queen and country rubbish. It's nothing to do with it. It's, I felt that, as I said, I went out there to hopefully stop the violence, and of course you can't. There's nothing you can do.
You go to Northern Ireland, it's for real. It's scary, very scary, without a doubt. But also, you're doing something that's for real for a change. You're not play acting, you're doing something for a real. So that's the part I enjoyed. It was for real. And that's about all I enjoyed about it.
And Northern Ireland's reality turned out to be harsh indeed for Private Stephen Gill, the soldier mentioned in the film who was injured 3 weeks before his Royal Anglian Regiment were due to come home. Private Gill lost his right leg above the knee, his left leg below the knee, and he lost his right eye. Queen and country demand a high price. That's all from us for this month. Until September, good night.